Hello. Okay.
Okay, so today we're talking about downloading and the effect that it's had on music right now, but also how the instances of free downloading have caused a lot of discussion in the artistic community and the musical community over whether or not music itself is the product, how much it's worth, how do you control the worth of musical product as far as song goes, what is the fan's responsibility to the artist in terms of paying for those things.
That was a good start.
Thanks.
I need a discussion question. I'm not really sure.
Okay. All right. So actually, let's go ahead and start with the issue of product versus property, or product and property. Is the simple sound property of the artist?
Because prior to this, before the internet, the property seemed to be pretty specific. You pressed a CD or a vinyl record or a cassette tape, and you sold that. That was your property.
Right, and the only other way to get the song was to listen for it on the radio.
Yeah. And you couldn't buy off the radio. You had to go buy the disc or tape or whatever. So.
And bootlegging was still an issue of, recording off the radio and then passing those tapes around, and it was a whole big thing, although ironically some bands got really big that way. I'm looking at you, Metallica.
And still do today because, because it's so much easier to share music.
Well, a lot of bands get big that way, and a lot of artists get known that way today. So the question is it really any different than it was then? The only thing that's different now is the control over that thing. Is that once you put a sound out into the world, it's much more difficult to control now.
A band can get big off of not making any money off of their supposed product being put out there. I'm thinking like MySpace players and things like that. They can stream their music and still pass it. It's so easy to pass around, and nobody's stealing it because it's there for people to listen to. So I guess that goes back to the question of what is really the property as opposed to the product.
Well, and also, what is the fan's responsibility to the musician? Like, we talk all the time about musically, what is the musician's responsibility to the fan? Like, do I have to care about you as a listener when I'm writing? Or should I just be writing for me and then, you enjoy it? What is the musician's responsibility? But this raises the argument of what is the fan's responsibility back to the artist in terms of taking care of that property or compensating them for their efforts. Is the song itself the musical product?
I'm not sure how to answer that one. Big picture kind of thing. Yeah.
See, I lean towards, yes, the song is property of the artist. I lean more towards the idea that, it's a musical creation, but at the same time, what it sounds like on that one recording, that's not the end-all, be-all of that song. And so I just can't see persecuting or prosecuting fans for trying to get your music. And we've seen examples in the past of bands like Radiohead and Hello Morning, who are a band from Seattle, where they do this kind of like name-your-own-price thing.
Jonah does that too.
Yeah, and a lot of musicians who are just starting out or not nearly as big, they say, oh, well, they can afford to do that.
Yeah.
So I can't really afford to do that, so it is stealing from me because I'm not saying name my own price. I'm not doing that, and so getting my music for free or getting it really cheaply is stealing from me because it's taking money out of my pocket. I can see that viewpoint, but I feel like we need to begin to be much more expansive as to what exactly it is that we're charging for. And I really don't think that performance of that song on demand, which is essentially what you're paying for when you download a song, or essentially what you're paying for when you buy a CD, is the right to listen to it whenever you want. Performance on demand is not something that we really as musicians should be chasing time to spending our time chasing to charge for.
I agree, because, and let's go back for a second for the product versus property idea about what does it really come down to? What is music all about in the end? It's about music. It's about the music itself, and mostly what you are paying for when you buy somebody's album is the recording process that went into, making it available for you to
studio
time, and then marketing and packaging and all those kind of things,
and all the outside people, the non-band people that were involved.
That's really what you're paying for. in the end, you're not really paying for the music.
music.
You're like you said, you're paying for the privilege to have the music to listen to whenever you want.
Yeah, the only
But then, like I
thing-
said, but these days, with the advent of the internet, artists can make the choice of whether or not to put their music out there for free, even if it's something that you can't, listen to necessarily whenever you want on an iPod or on a CD player. But you can put it on, open up their MySpace page and play it anytime you want, as long as it's up there available. So I don't know. It seems to me that I guess I'm just agreeing with you that the music itself is not the thing that we need to be chasing down money for.
Yeah, and when you buy the CD, you were talking about all the different stuff that you're actually paying for and you go into. The profit margin on a CD, is there actually a chunk of that that's tagged as like paying for the property? Because the only thing that goes back to the band is their bit of the profit margin on that CD.
Right.
And is that bit all their music is worth? I think they would argue that it's not. So,
because it's really all about all those things that go into making an album or making a song and putting it out there is to make the music available. It's all about the music in the end. It's not, people don't buy CDs for an awesome CD jacket.
Right. But see,
they,
that's and
they don't buy it just because it was engineered by so and so awesome engineer.
Right. And that's where I think musicians have kind of missed the train on this, and maybe it's because the music industry mentality has kind of kept this under wraps. But we have expected, well, I say we, even though I don't really share this mentality, musicians have expected, or the music industry has expected, the fan to change as times change, while not wanting to change themselves, change their own mentality. And here's where the mentality is: the music is no longer the sole thing that you're trying to get a fan to chase. It's all about the music in the end for the musician, but music is no longer the thing you're trying to get them to chase. You're trying to get them to chase the experience now. And so if you want them to shell out their money, you have to give them more experience. And a CD in a crystal case with a paper inset in the front is no longer going to satisfy that experience.
Totally.
And so if that's all you're offering them to pay money for, if they can get it for free somewhere else, they're gonna, and I wouldn't blame them.
Indeed.
So I think that we have to begin to expand our concept of what goes along with the music in order to create the experience. I think the artwork that goes out with it and the extras that you make available whenever you put out an album or come out with new music, like those kinds of things, they all play into the experience, and that's really what you want them to chase. Two really good examples of this. When Radiohead put out In Rainbows, and they had the whole name your own price thing, one of the other things that they offered along with that was this big set that had the album on vinyl, a giant book of artwork, came with the CD, and came in this big cardboard sleeve. It was like $80. I got that. It was actually given to me as a present. But it was so cool that the whole experience of that thing, like the weight of the object and what all went into that, it went beyond the music at that point, and actually having that in my hands and then putting the CD in and having the extra artwork and stuff played into the experience. The other example I have is when Incubus put out their Greatest Hits album. The Greatest Hits album was 2 discs, and one disc was entirely B-sides and live stuff, and then the other was the Greatest Hits album. Well, along with that, if you purchased the album, you got a code to get into the vault on their website. And the vault is filled with photos and videos and tracks and back stuff, and going all the way back to Fungus Among Us when they first started. I mean, crazy amounts of stuff. And it played into the experience of getting that thing. I didn't need the Greatest Hits album because I have all those songs on all the albums. I have everything they've ever done. But it made it worth it to buy that, and I totally shelled out my money for that to experience the rest of what came along with it. It wasn't just a crystal case with a CD in it. You cannot rely on that as a musician being the sole experience that you're willing to put out for your band and expect people to want to come pay for that. You got to draw them in. You got to make them want to give you their money.
I agree, and I think that kind of leads into the little offshoot discussion about illegal downloading, what is considered illegal downloading and sharing of music. And I think that's kind of the big picture, big no-no, you know, that the industry is fighting against, and that music fans are sort of back and forth about. You know, I don't think any reasonable person really wants to steal music, but I think we're all in a gray area of what is stealing the music and what is sharing the music.
Yeah, and
because we who has not burned a CD for their friend, dude, you got to check this out. How is that different than delivering the music in a digital format to somebody?
Yeah, like they expect you to morally police yourself.
Right.
Whereas
and they're trying to
without them having to say, okay, well, but this is what is coming from us. This is how we're changing to meet this.
Yeah.
The only change that they want to make is, oh, well, it's available online now, but you have to police yourself to not get it someplace for free.
Yeah.
And that's an unrealistic expectation. One of the excuses for modern illegal downloading is basically that, you know, you're still getting paid so much for what people are purchasing. Like, who cares if some people are skimming on the side? I have been having a discussion with somebody about this, and they brought up to me what they called the cupcake example of music. How a musician makes a song the same way that a baker or a chef makes food. You know, you have to conceptualize it and put it together. And if I have a bakery and I make 8 loaves of bread, and somebody comes in and takes 4 of them, but the other 4 get purchased, those other 4 were still stolen. Now compare that to music. If I sell a certain number of albums and a bunch more get downloaded for free, then even though I got paid for those albums that got purchased, the other ones still got stolen.
But then, like, Lars Ulrichs and the whole Napster debate was over the fact that those people that are getting it for free possibly would have paid for it if they didn't have it available for free.
Right, and that's where this kind of plays into, is that those people would have gone and paid for it. So it's,
in the end, they're saying it's hurting the artist.
Yes. So if you had 4 loaves of bread stolen, but you still had 4 paid for, the other 4 were still stolen. Okay, and actually it was cupcakes. That's why they call it the cupcake example. Here's the difference, though. If I have 4 cupcakes stolen out of 8 that I made, I physically paid for the flour, the sugar, the eggs,
frosting,
everything that went into making those cupcakes. It's a physical loss. If somebody goes out and burns a CD for somebody else, it's a conceptual loss. I lost no money on that deal. And to say that they would have gone and paid for it...
Yeah, I see what you're saying. They didn't lose money, but they didn't get money that they might have made.
That they might have otherwise made. Now, to say that they would have gone and paid for it, how do you know that the only reason they didn't get your album was because they had the opportunity to get it for free?
Indeed.
And in that case... If that is if you're arguing that you lost money that you would have otherwise made because they would have gone out and purchased it, but not considering that flip side, in the case of them getting it for free and that's the only reason they got your album, you just introduced yourself to somebody that wouldn't have otherwise heard you, thus opening yourself up for future money-making opportunities.
Totally.
The concept of free music is all about opening yourself up for future money-making opportunities. And so... the way you have to combat illegal downloading is sort of counterintuitive. You have to start making more stuff available for free. The stuff you want to be available for free.
Yeah.
And you build the experience, and you connect with that fan, build the experience so that when it comes time for you to put something out that you want them paying for, they're willing.
Totally.
Because they are now your fan.
Yeah, as opposed to an otherwise shunned fan because they weren't able to get your album or they were otherwise punished because they wanted to. I go back to what I was saying about music fans. I don't think that they're stealing music because they want to steal. It's not a black and white issue that they're trying to break the law. They want music. They want music, and I think that musicians need to start realizing that yes, being in a band is simultaneously artistry and a business if you're doing it for a living and not just a hobby. But I think musicians need to start realizing that what they got into it in the first place was to make music. And just like Jeremiah said, you need to start finding other ways to make people interested in your music because they're always going to come back to the music however they can get their hands on it if they are a fan of you and they have a personal stake in your music. And so you can find other ways to be a good business person about bringing them in and having them spend money on you, but you have to make them want it.
Well, and that's the thing there is like, if you give them a personal stake, then they will want to have that support for you. They will want to do those things. I mean, I have in my head sort of a list of bands that whenever something comes out by them, I will always purchase it, no matter what other opportunity. If somebody I know has it and they're going to give it to me for free, or there's an opportunity to get it somewhere, I will always purchase it.
Me too.
Because I want to support them. When Incubus comes out with stuff, I will pre-order it in order to spend money on it. Like whenever Five Iron Frenzy would put out a new album when I was younger, and I was so poor that if I couldn't get it for free, I essentially almost couldn't get it, I would still scrape together the money and purchase the album every time. I would shun opportunities to get it for free because I wanted to give them my money. I wanted to have a stake in what they did. I'm trying to put my money into music that I think is good because I want to have a personal stake. You know, you and purchasing Jonah's stuff.
I was going to mention him, yeah, because he's done such a good job at making his artistry and his business very, very personal and making you feel like, you know, you're a part of his bigger picture. And you're a part of his music, that he always gives you an option of paying pretty much whatever you want to pay for anything that he puts out, but you always want to pay more than the baseline because you want to support what he's doing because you feel a part of it, and that's important to being a fan. And also because you were saying that, you know, defining what is the fan's responsibility and what is the artist's responsibility. I think the artist's responsibility in the end, if you want your music, your artistry, let's say, to be a business, you have to get down off your business high horse and make it personal. So then, you know, you can get people to have a stake in your music. And then I think those two things are reciprocal and they play back and forth. And yeah. Jonah's a perfect example of that.
You can't treat the commercialization of artistic expression the same way you treat the commercialization of plastic toys.
Totally.
Like, it's not just about, you know, marketing, and the customers aren't just purchasing your toy because they want the toy. Like, they have a stake in what they have purchased. And if you don't give them a stake in what they've purchased, recorded sound is such a amorphous, almost conceptual thing that you can't expect people to morally police themselves across the board.
And you can't force the issue either, because then people just get pissed off and they'll do it in spite.
Yeah, and this whole thing about, you know, the mother who was sued by the RICA or RIAA, thank you, the RIAA for like $80,000 or whatever because her computer was open to having tracks off of her hard drive recorded. She didn't download anything. She didn't purposefully put it up. It just, her drive was open to a network, and they were able to get the tracks off there, so they went after her for $10,000 a piece or something. That was like 8 tracks, if I remember the story correctly. That kind of stuff is ridiculous, and that's the kind of stuff that makes people be like, you know what, F you, I'm going to do it anyway. You know, going after young kids who are doing it, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it shows a complete misunderstanding of it proves the attitude that I was talking about of expecting the consumer to change while not having to change in order to suit yourself, to suit it yourself.
I'm going to give some props to another podcast, the punknews.org podcast. They did a little segment on this similar subject, and they made a really good point that the face of this industry and the whole moray has completely changed. It's not going to ever go back to the way, as long as we have the internet, it's never going to go back. So somebody needs to start giving, and it's not going to be the fans, because fans are always going to want music, and they're going to get it however they can get it. And if you make them, like we've been saying, if you make them want to pay for it out of numerous different ways, then you're playing the right game. But right now, people don't want to purchase it, and I'm going to go off on a little rant here about a couple things that have been on my mind, because I can really see how somebody would not want to, even if it's readily available for download via purchase. I can see why people would skip that and go straight for the easily available music for free of numerous different platforms. I think sites like iTunes I think they started on the right track, and I think they're veering off. For instance, I know that at one point, I forgot what it was called exactly, but you bought, I think it was when Muse put out their latest album, they had some kind of expansion album,
like an
or
expanded album, or an
expanded
EP.
deluxe amazing something or other thingamabob, and it gave you like tons of extra material, like videos and artwork and photos and live tracks and bonus tracks and stuff like that, and that was something that you're not just getting the album, you're getting on this whole other thing digitally. Yeah, and it gives you, you're getting the experience, and it makes you want to, you have a choice. You can I can pay $10 for the album digital download, or I can pay however much, like $15 or $20 or something, and get all this other stuff. It's kind of a no-brainer if that's something you're willing to pay for. As opposed to what iTunes has been doing a lot lately is they've been using the idea of a deluxe album as an excuse to charge a CD price for something where you're just getting a couple more tracks. And it's just really annoying when you're paying. It used to be $1 a track, and a lot of albums they've upped it up to $1.29 a track, which for a song $1.29 doesn't sound like that much. But when you're like Jeremiah and myself, where you are more interested in albums and singles, you're paying up the wazoo then for all these bands that we follow, because there are dozens and dozens of bands that we're willing to pay for.
In that instance, I'd almost rather just go to the local record store and get it there.
Absolutely, because then at least you're getting a product that you can hold. When if you're paying like $12, $13, $14 for a CD or for a digital download, because it used to be $13 for a CD was like, wow, what a deal. Because for a while at Fye and Best Buy and stuff, they were up to like $18.
But yeah,
for an album.
I would rather, like, if I'm paying $13 or $14 online to get it, I'd almost rather go pay $18 at the local record store and support the local record store and
Absolutely.
Get the physical product.
Yeah. But anyway, but what iTunes has been doing, they've been shrouding, just hitting you up for more money in this idea that they're giving you more, when they're really just tacking on a couple like live tracks or maybe a B-side, maybe like a cover, and they've been calling it a deluxe album, and their prices have shot up from $9.99 an album to like anywhere between $11.99 to like I've seen them up to $14.99 for an album, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And I was getting really annoyed with that after a while, because obviously I wanted that extra stuff, but I don't see why they couldn't have just put that as part of the regular album, or maybe at least charge you maybe $1 more or something like that. But then I discovered this other site called shockhound.com, which is the offshoot, I think, of Hot Topics music download site and merchandise and things like that. And it's very similar to iTunes, but they're more geared towards the alt scene, alt rock, alt metal, alt hip hop, and things like that. And but they're cool because they have a lot of sales, and I've actually been noticing that ever since I discovered Shockhound, that iTunes have been doing it too, and I'm wondering if they're competing now, because when they put out albums initially for that first couple days or first week or whatever, they'll give it to you for like $6.99 as opposed to $9.99, and they'll give you that the deluxe album for that price too, and things like that. So I see paying $6.99 for a digital download is totally reasonable. I'm very willing to do that because it's a reasonable price. As opposed to, and I think a reason that a lot of people don't like to pay for music online is because they're still paying $10 for something they could be paying $10 for at Best Buy, but you're not getting really what you're paying for at Best Buy, which is the packaging. You're getting just a MP3, and it's not, pardon me for making this judgment, but it's not worth it to most people to do that. It's not worth to pay $10, especially if you follow a lot of artists, to pay that much money. So Shockhound has been saving grace for me, because I've been able to get a lot of music, new releases for a lot less than I would have been paying on iTunes.
Especially in this modern world where you are able to be so much more aware of so much more music. You're able to be far more aware of a much wider spectrum of music. People just can't afford to purchase everything from all their favorite artists. I mean, even if you went only to that, like I was talking before, that select group of artists you're willing to pay for their stuff, I just don't know that it's possible for most people to be able to keep up with everything that all their favorite artists put out, because all of a sudden you have this broad scope. I'm not just, it's not just that I'm a Buddy Holly fan anymore and like that's my major thing, or that I'm a Weezer fan and that's my major thing. It's like when you were in high school or you're in college, you identify with like maybe one or two bands, the guys who were Nirvana junkies, or the guys who, you know, just really like they had their favorite metal band or whatever. It's so easy to be aware of tons of bands now, and to actually really follow them, not just, you know, have them on the periphery while you follow your one or two favorites. And just it's got to be almost impossible. I know it is for me to purchase everything that I want to from all the artists, all the new releases and the bonus tracks and all this stuff. And so, you know, when somebody says to me, I just got it and I'm willing to burn it for you, oftentimes I'll admit, you know, I don't even think twice.
It's become part of the it's a standard now. It's a, you know, it's not the landscape have changed so much, and there was also some other things getting in the way of you following before, you know, the internet became a popular platform for music downloading. You know, you had to actually, there's a lot of steps in the way of you getting stuff constantly, especially when before you're of driving age and things like that. You know, you had to scrounge up the money. You had to get your parents to take you to the record store. You know, you can only afford one or two albums, blah, blah, blah. You know, even though you wanted so much more, but, you know, there's only so much that you could take home with you at any given time, as opposed to now where it's just, it doesn't, you know, it's a digital format, so it doesn't take up any space in your house. And
there's like almost no steps to getting it, you know?
Yeah, it's so easy.
How much
it's
music
so available.
How much music have you gotten like on a whim?
Yeah. Well, you're on iTunes and you're like, hey, you know, I'm gonna go buy the new Muse record, and then you're like, fans also bought, and you're like, ooh, who's that? And you check them out, and you're like, oh wow, they're really good. And then you're like, I gotta get that. Oh, I forgot that I never bought that old album of NoFX over here. I'm gonna get that too. And then you're like, by the time you're done, you realize that after it's a couple clicks, you've just spent like, you know, $100.
Right.
And you're like, oh crap. So you know, it's hard to keep up with the whole thing these days.
It's not as much of a process to start getting music, you know. But you know, I really and for that reason, you know, I go back to the point about, you know, package deals and tiered spending and all that kind of stuff as a method of experience. Another really good example to put out there is Brandon Boyd just released his solo album not long ago. And when I went to purchase the solo album, there was a package for like $20. And you got a t-shirt, and you got a physical copy, and you got artwork from Brandon that had a letter, you know, like a, you know, mass produced, but a letter from him to everybody who got it. And the minute you purchased it, you also got a digital download of the album. So they sent you a physical copy as well as a digital download the minute you purchased it. Like, it's just that kind of stuff that I get the album and I listen to it and I was all geared up for it, and then the stuff comes in the mail and it, like, you know, reinvigorates the experience. And, you know, that's sort of where I feel like music as a community has to move towards, is every time you do something, you have to ask yourself, how is this adding to the experience that I want people to have with my music?
Well said.
Thank you.
I think that kind of wraps it up. Yeah. Do you want to just say a little thing about what we're going to put on?
Yeah, to kind of put our money where our mouth is. You may have read in our blogs or seen on our posts that we are recording a new album and recording kind of a slew of new music. And we are going to tag on to the end here of the podcast a couple of them in order to kind of let you guys in a little bit.
Expand the experience.
Expand the experience. We haven't been out performing for a little while, although we hope to really soon. And so we want to kind of give a preview of the material that we put out, and also as a thank you to people that actually are listening and following us through this time that we're not out on the scene as readily. So thanks, and hope you enjoy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
My heart is beating strong. I feel it pushing outward against my jail cell ribs. They're holding strong despite. She stands there lazy, selfish, bringing her honor privileges, offering only regression. I know you wanted these things to bring these wishes on me. You manufactured this, ending right from the start. Full of your cards, you're laying each so calmly. You put to death the best of you and put the rest on a pedestal. Leave me out of this. Isn't this your mess? Leave me out of this. You've been so careless. Walk away cleanly and just keep pretending. My words are coming out venom. I poison myself more and more as we go. She's egging me on. You've sharpened your words to daggers, but you don't see in yourself the things you accuse me of. And I don't want this anymore. Leave me out of this. Isn't this your mess? Leave me out of this. You've been so reckless. Leave me out of this. Haven't you done enough? Leave me out of this. It's just too much. Keep pretending that it's your privilege, but I just don't want this, and I'm feeling sharpened. This is not your privilege. This is not your privilege. This is not your privilege. You're so blind and searching. You know you run away a lot. You think you'll find yourself, but I think you've lost the plot. I feel the anger rising like a weapon deep inside of me. But I don't wanna wield it. It opens a weakness inside of me. This is not your privilege.
That was good.